Hello everyone, this is Spirit Hawk coming to you with something a little different today. I'm going to start a little new segment called Casual Kitchen Witchery. I'm going to show you how to save money and give you some kitchen tips and share some recipes with you in this series. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about natural pork loin, the whole loin. This is the cut of meat where you get the loin roast or the pork chops, the breakfast chops and things like that. But if you get 6 chops, it's going to cost you $6. But if you get the whole loin, I can show you how to get 22 chops and 3 nice sized roasts out of this one cut of meat. We're going to break it down, we're going to cut the fat off, and we're going to add it to something else to get you 5 more meals from a different additive. That's coming up. So what you're going to need today is a good chopping board, nice size. You're going to need a nice chef knife with a good point on it, and your sharpener. Make sure this is very sharp. We're going to have to sharpen it a couple of times during this process. And you got some Ziploc bags there. You can use freezer bags or just regular ones, either one. This is the second thing we're going to be using today. I've got extra lean beef for stew. This is regular stew meat. I've got 2 pounds of this. And I'll show you after we break down the pork what we're going to do with this lovely Angus beef. You're going to cut the package off of this beautiful piece of meat here and wash it off. It may have a funky little smell to it. You want to wash it real good with cold water and lay it with the fat side up. Today we're going to be trimming all of that fat off of there. I like nice lean meat. If I'm going to have pork, I don't want to add any extra fat to it. So I'm just going to take that layer of fat off, and under that layer of fat there is something called silver skin. That's something you don't really want to eat a whole lot of. It's kind of chewy, and that's what holds the muscle and the fat together. There is a heavier end of your pork loin, and it will have on the side of it a good bit of fat mixed with meat. If you have a regular pork chop and it's cut from the store, it's got that little thing on the tail of the pork chop that's got a little circle of meat surrounded by fat. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take that off of the side of this thing, and we're going to get all of the fat off of it, so we'll have nice lean chops. Now you're going to take the sharp knife and slip the tip underneath that 1/4 to 1/2 inch of fat layer. It's going to have a fat slab, and then it's going to be the silver skin layer that I spoke of before. You're going to take this and cut it to the right toward the end of this loin if you're right-handed. And you're going to make yourself a flap about 3 to 5 inches long. And we're going to use that flap for leverage as we pull it up and cut against it with this knife so we don't cut into the pork itself. We're going to slide that tip of that knife in with our right hand, take in our left hand that flap and cut against the fat all the way down the pork, and repeat this process until you've got all the fat and all of the silver skin off of this pork. The next thing we're going to do is locate the soft fatty tissue that runs along the side of the pork loin. Take your knife, slip the tip underneath the fat, and cut to the right, and use the same basic technique as in the last, and go ahead and use that flap, pull it up, and use the knife against the fat. You will get to a point where the fat gets a little meshy, spidery, and you can put the knife down and just pull it away, pull the fat away from the roast, and use the knife just where you need to. You want to save as much of the pork meat intact as you can. But it's okay if you get a little bit of the meat and the fat, because, like I said, we're going to use this later. This is pretty much what you're going to look at this point. It's not very pretty, but that's okay. It'll be pretty in a minute. We're going to go ahead and finish taking this fat layer off. If you can see at about the middle of the picture, at the top of that meat, that fat strand, you can see a little bit of meat, and also you can see my thumb at the left bottom of the frame. There's meat running through that little strip of fat as well. This is the part that makes the loin fatter on one end than the other, wider on the other end. So we're going to take this off and just keep repeating and repeating until you get all of the fat off of this thing, and pile the fat up on your cutting board to save for later. This is just another angle and further down to the left of this whole loin that we're working with. This is the side of it, so you can see in a better way which part that we're going for, and you can see how much meat there really is in that slice of fat. Okay, now finally to the end of the loin with this big slab of fat. We're going to take that completely off, and then once we get that off, this other loose, webby, soft tissue, white soft tissue that you see left on the meat, we're going to go ahead and clean that off so you have a nice clean loin with no fat on it at all. Just trim it all off until it's nice and clean. This is what you should have after you clean that side bit of fat pad off of the loin end. We're going to save just a tiny bit of this nice soft fatty tissue on this, I guess it's about a 10-inch long piece of loin, and we're going to wrap this up and use this for a roast. If you're going to make some good gravy with your roast, you need a little bit of fat content, but not too much. So this is about how much I left on it. Now I've gone to the other end of the loin, and I'm going to go ahead and cut another 10-inch piece off of this one, and I will have a second roast with just a little bit of marbling fat on the outside of it. Okay, here is the clean pork loin. In the front, I've cut it into 22 half-inch lean pork chops. Behind that on the right, you've got a 10-inch roast, well, a couple of 10-inch roasts. I'm going to take the one on the top that you see there and cut it in half. So I'll have two smaller roasts and one larger roast. And then I've got the fat pad and the silver skin and all the waste on the other side. All right, I did the math. I've got 3 roasts here in the front wrapped in foil. Both of them would probably run $6 each, that are the smaller ones, and the larger one would probably cost you $9. So that's already over the amount that we paid for the whole loin. So your savings includes a half a roast here, plus 11 meals of half-inch pork chops for 2 for free. Let me say that again. You bought the roasts, you got 11 meals for 2 for free, just for doing this yourself. Okay, so we've heard all our lives, waste not, want not. So what are we going to do with this? There's a lot of meat left in there. There's a lot of fat, but granted, there's a lot of meat left in there. So let's not waste it. I'll show you what we're going to do to it in the next frame. Remember I mentioned the 2 pounds of Angus beef stew meat at the beginning of the keynote? Here we are. We're going to take this meat and make some ground beef out of it. This is extra lean, so you're going to have some fat. So guess what? We've got some pork and some fat. So let's grind it up together and make us some really good 80-20 ground meat. This meat grinder is about one of my favorite kitchen utensils that I own. I have saved so much money using this thing. I got it from eBay a few years back. I think it cost me about $125, and the seller actually donated part of the proceeds to homeless pets, so that was a double bonus for me. I always like to try to give back and support people that do the same. So anyway, this is a great thing to have. Sometimes you can't find ground chicken and you need it, but you can find thighs or chicken breasts or whatever you want and use it to grind your meat up. Sometimes you need a different meat besides hamburger to make your meatballs with. A lot of people, and most of the better chefs, use a blend of meats for these things, but you can't find it ground just readily available in your hometown store. So this thing is going to not only give you more options, it's going to save you a ton of money. You can get your sale meat, like the steaks that nobody wants. It's got a lot of fat on it. Well, that makes great ground meat, and it's nice and healthy, and you know what you're getting. You're not getting somebody's idea of ground meat and guessing what it is. You know what you're grinding. If you're particular about that, you know exactly what you're getting in your ground meat. So get you one of these if you don't have one. This photograph is a little bit out of sync for this process, but I want to help you out. The first few times I used my meat grinder, I just put the meat in there and I would end up with this big strip of meat stuck at the bottom that never grinds. It's stuck there. I don't know why it does it, but it does. So I have learned to feed a little bit of fat strip into my grinder before I put any meat in there. That will fill the spot and will ensure that you get the most meat out of your grind instead of having to chop that little bit by hand when you're finished. I have fed my first little strip of fat. It had a little silver skin on it to fill that little spot up at the end of the grinder. And this is what we're going to put in there. This is that piece of fat pad that was along the side of the loin. You can see it's got a lot of pork in it. We've got 2 pounds of lean black angus stew meat, and we've got a 1/2 pound of fat, and plus we probably got a 1/4 pound of pork in there. So we're going to go ahead and start grinding this up together. I did a partial freeze on the Angus beef so that when I mixed it with the pork that had been worked with for about an hour, it's not really cold anymore. It's going to chill that fat a little bit. You don't have to do this, but it's just something that's going to help you get a more even mix as you grind it. When you grind, you want to put a little bit of meat and then a little bit of fat through. You can't just put it all in the pan and shove it through. It's best to be mixed as you are grinding it. So take your time and get it all mixed up, and I'll show you what it looks like next. Here is your meat mixture. This is what it looks like. You've got about 20% fat to 80% beef ratio. Like I said, that is 2 pounds of ground beef and a 1/2 pound of fat. Also, within this, you're going to have a little bit of pork, and that's just going to add to the flavor of the beef as you cook it. So we've got a nice little mixture here. When you've put the last of the beef in your grinder, sometimes it will stay in there and not completely grind out. So to make sure that you do have all of the beef since it is so expensive. What you're going to do is take another piece of fat, a good hefty piece, and feed it in after the beef mixture. And when you see the fat coming out, then you know all of the beef is cleared from the spiral, and you can use that little bit of fat left over and turn off your machine, because that's all that we're going to need of that. Would you look at that lovely pile of 80/20 ground beef? The only waste we have from this loin now is a handful of fat that we wouldn't want to eat anyway. It is the toughest silver skin, so we're just going to toss that away. I've got the 11 meals for 2 pork chops, 3 pork roasts fit for Sunday dinner, and 2 3/4 pounds of ground Angus beef with pork fat. So that's what we've got. We can make a lot of meals out of that. Since I normally cook for 2 people, I went ahead and separated this beef into 5 approximately 3/4 pound packages, and those are plenty sufficient meat for tacos, 2 hamburgers, Italian food, or stuffed peppers. So that is 5 extra meals there out of the pork fat and the 2 pounds of Angus beef. Here we have our yield from the 1 pork loin and the 2 pounds of extra lean black Angus stew meat. You've got 2 roasts that will feed 2 people plus a few leftovers. We've got 1 roast that will feed 4 people plus a few leftovers. We have 5 hamburger ground beef meals, which could be tacos. It could just, one of these packets would do 2 to 3 burgers. You've got tacos. I think I said tacos, but I really like tacos. You've got spaghetti. You can do anything with this ground beef. It's going to be delicious. On the right, you have 22 half-inch extra lean pork chops. You can use those for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So basically, all together, we have 24 to 26 filling meat meals for 2 people that will cost you $1.33 per meal for 2 people, or 67 cents per person for $32. What an amazing savings that is. And now your freezer's full and you don't have to worry about meat for a month. I hope you've enjoyed this little segment of Casual Kitchen Witchery with Spirit Hawk. That's me. I also do animal spirit guides and other little things on YouTube. So I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and share with your friends if you find this information helpful to you and your family. I do plan on doing a lot more of this kitchen witchery for you and sharing recipes and kitchen tips and tricks to save you money in these hard times. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for your time. If you like, you can find me on Facebook under the Native Magi. We have also a private group, Native Magi. I have a website, thenativemagi.com, and there is a nativemagi@gmail.com if you'd like to send me an email. I hope y'all have a great day, and may Wakantanka bless you in all you do.